Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I've been doing this for a while. Very rarely do I come across a story that leaves me absolutely confused and befuddled, but here we are. Today we're going to be talking about the floating women of Appalachia. Yes, I'm being serious. The hills of Appalachia are full of tales of all manner of ghosts and monsters. But today I'm going to talk about stories of some of the weirdest encounters I've ever come across. The tales of the floating women of Appalachia. And you might be asking yourself, are they witches? Are they ghosts? Are they just Appalachian women who don't want Isaac Newton telling them what to do? At the end of the day, I don't know. I've just stumbled across 3 stories of women floating around Appalachia, and I'm bringing them to you. And if you like strange tales from the hills of Appalachia, stick around to the end, subscribe to the channel, and as always, thank you for watching. The first and most well-known story that we're going to talk about today is the tale of the woman whose feet never touched the ground. And this story was submitted to the West Virginia Ghost website all the way back in 2007. The story begins with the narrator talking about spending evenings at their grandmother's house, and while they were there, different family members would come and visit, and the narrator's mother, aunts, and uncles often would tell stories about the woman whose feet never touched the ground. The narrator's uncle didn't believe in the supernatural until he had an encounter with a woman whose feet never touched the ground. One day the uncle was cutting through the property of the woman whose feet never touched the ground when he felt a chill run down his spine. He turned around and there she was. She was old, terrifying, horrible to look at, and was floating a foot or two above the ground, just heading right for him. And along with her, she was being followed by this table that was also floating above the ground and just spinning, following her around. In another story, the narrator's mother and one of their aunts was also cutting through the property to get to another relative's house. When they got to a fence on the edge of the property and was trying to get over it, they heard cackling behind them, turned around, and sure enough, the woman whose feet never touched the ground was behind them, floating again a couple feet off the ground and heading right for them. The 2 girls were able to climb over the fence and escape, but what was this entity? What was this thing? A few weeks later, the narrator's mother and another one of their sisters were heading home. This time they're walking along the road because they kind of learned their lesson about trespassing on the property of the woman whose feet never touched the ground. And the mother just got this sense that this entity, this woman, was somewhere nearby. Now there was this abandoned pickup truck on the side of the road, and she decided to peek into the bed of it, and there the woman was laying in the bed of this truck, apparently sleeping. And the mother tried calling the other aunt over to, see the woman whose feet never touched the ground sleeping in the back of this truck, but she had already hightailed it out of there. She wanted nothing to do with it. Later on that night, the mother would come back, and the woman whose feet never touched the ground was awake. Apparently, she was hovering over the bed of this truck, stirring a rather large cauldron. So you might be wondering, what was this entity? Was it a witch? Was it a ghost? Well, we don't know. And apparently there were other encounters up into the 90s when the house finally burnt down, and then the woman whose feet never touched the ground was never seen again. And for a while, that was it. That was the only story I knew about a weird floating woman in Appalachia until in the last year when I sat down and started reading the second Foxfire book that has an entire section about ghost and hint tales. And sure enough, there's a story about a floating woman in here too. And also, if you haven't, just check out the Foxfire books. They're full of old-timey mountain knowledge and interviews and just really good reads. So definitely check it out if you haven't. But in the second Foxfire book, there is a tale by one Miss Mary Carpenter about an encounter her father had with one of the floating women of Appalachia. Every evening about sundown, this woman would just appear in the sky over a fork in the road. She was so high up, and she wore this super long flowing black dress, and as she just moved around up there, it sounded like wind moving through the leaves of a tree. One night, Mary Carpenter's father and an individual he worked with was riding home from work on mules. It was raining a little bit, and they decided, you know what? Let's go to this fork in the road and see if we can see the floating woman. And when they get to the fork in the road, they look up, and sure enough, there she is. They decide to each get on different sides of the road and let her pass in between them. They then turned around and started following her to see where she was going. They followed her for about half a mile, but eventually there was a turn in the road at the base of a hill, and the woman, when she got to this turn, instead of taking the turn, she just kept getting higher and higher up in the air until she just went over this ridge, and they never saw her again. Now, we all know that 1 is an accident, 2 is a coincidence, but 3 is a pattern, and sure enough, while reading a different book, where's it at? Ah, here we go. While reading Haint Country, a fantastic book. Check it out if you haven't read it. Really good. A lot of great stories in here. And also the art is very reminiscent. If you were a fan of the art in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, yeah, it's very similar in here. Definitely check it out. But there is a story of a group of raccoon hunters that decided to go out and hunt in a new area. They're walking down this road, they turn around, and on the other side of a cornfield, they see this old house and a woman in a long white dress with long black hair just floating over it. And she's not, coming towards them. She's not, trying to scare them or anything. But they just see her and they book it out of there because, yeah, that's a pretty reasonable response. And again, I have no idea if these are tales of witches or tales of ghosts or if there's something completely different entirely. I've covered all manner of ghost and cryptids on this channel. Generally, when I hear a story, I can, give somewhat of an explanation of how the story possibly originated or what could have inspired it or why it's still, prevalent and well known to this day. I've talked about all sorts of ghosts. I talked about all sorts of cryptids. I've talked about the Mothman, the Flatwoods Monster, the Grafton Monster, the Squonk. Typically, I can give some type of historical explanation or insight to these stories. But in this case, I'm at a complete loss. So I went to my friend Spooky Appalachia to ask him what he thought of this. If you haven't checked out Spooky Appalachia, definitely go check him out. I'll put a link to his channel down in the description. He is a phenomenal content creator. He's working towards 10,000 subscribers. Definitely go check him out. He is the real deal. It's not like the crap I do here. And he tells me this sounds like one of the encounters that people had with the Black Sisters of Christiansburg, Virginia. Very infamous witches of the area. I'll put the video that me and him did together about them somewhere up here. But yeah, one night they were seen just floating down the street. So now we have 4 cases of just random women floating around Appalachia, and I have no idea what to make of these stories. So what's your thoughts on the floating women of Appalachia? Do you think they're ghosts? Do you think they're witches? Do you think they're women that are just sick and tired of Isaac Newton telling them that they can't float and they have to obey the rules of gravity? Let me know down in the comments what other weird tales should I talk about in the future. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And again, thank you for watching this long. It really means the world to me. But until next time, don't forget to stay wild, stay wonderful, and I'll talk to you later.